All over the UK, thousands of historic buildings lie forgotten and neglected, often tangled up with red tape or abandoned by owners who cannot afford the repairs. Some of these are in danger of being lost forever. English Heritage's Buildings at Risk Register has over 1,000 buildings of outstanding architectural interest that are literally falling down, waiting for people like you to turn them into homes.
You sit there at home and you look at the TV and you think, I could do that.
I dream about the house every night.
It definitely took a lot of blood, sweat and tears to get the planning permission.
In this series, you're going to see people breathing new life into derelict water towers, engine houses, windmills and churches. As an architect, I'm passionate about our architectural heritage. And I want to help these restoration warriors on their journeys as they reclaim, recycle and make these buildings useful again. Every structure has its own unique history, which I know will help guide these intrepid restorers.
The house with no roof.
We just knew it was a building that just deserved to be saved.
But their labours of love can come at a huge personal price, both financially
If something goes wrong, we lose everything.
and emotionally.
He's always working at night and at weekends. He's always working. He lives his life stressed.
When you take on a listed building, you're taking on a responsibility. You become its guardian to pass on to future generations.
We'll be able to stand back and point to the grandkids and say, blood, sweat and tears, we converted it into that house.
I hope I can bring my vision and expertise to help these restoration warriors realise their dreams. I'm in the ancient town of Congleton, set in the Cheshire countryside. Since the Middle Ages, this market town has been renowned as a producer of lace and leather goods. But to make them, Congleton needed one very important thing: water. And it's the very reason this impressive structure was built. Constructed in 1881, this Victorian water tower, known as the Forge Lane Water Tower, was at the time state-of-the-art engineering, delivering clean, safe and fresh water to the town. But since larger reservoirs have been built, the tower has played a minor role. Today, 30-year-old architect Andy Critchlow and his partner Anna Ferguson, who works in IT, have a vision to restore this abandoned Victorian monument into their dream home.
We did come and see it once in the snow. We hopped over the fence and just came up and have a look, and it is a really lovely building.
Went straight to the auction, still no real idea whether we were going to buy it, and then probably about half an hour later, walked out, phoned Anna and said, we've just bought a water tower.
Yeah, I was taken aback, just concerned about how he was going to fit this all in, whether it was going to actually break him. And the realisation that we were selling our house and moving in with Andy's parents.
Because I've got this obstacle in front of me, I'll give like 100% to it until it's done. Pretty much every day coming from work, we see it on the way into Congleton and just dream of having a G&T on the deck. To me, you know, it's as special as a palace.
Andy and Anna bought this building along with 1 acre of land for £100,000 at auction. After selling their old house, they have a budget of £200,000 to transform this empty shell. On their restoration journey, I'm going to help, advise and encourage them to realise their ambitions. So I'm on my way to see what is supposed to be the most beautiful Victorian water tower. The Victorians always gave utilitarian structures like this a sense of grandeur as well as detail. Often our great industrial heritage is neglected, as these buildings seem unsuitable to turn into homes. As an architect, I love challenges like this. Morning.
Hello.
Morning, George.
How are you?
Yeah, very good. You?
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
How are you? Andy, yeah?
Yeah, I'm Andy.
All right, how are you? Nice to meet you. How's things?
Not too bad.
Yeah.
That's good, yeah.
Good, very good, very good.
You've got yourself an incredible building. Why on earth did you buy this?
Why on earth don't everybody? That's what I've got to say.
What's amazing is that you've got this next to it. Is this yours as well?
Unfortunately not. That's the ugly twin, if you like. As this one was decommissioned, they went and built that. Clearly a different period in architectural styles.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is more like the kind of great-granddad, and that's the great-grandson, isn't it?
Yeah.
Have you ever done anything like this before?
No.
No.
Should we go inside and have a look? This Grade 2 listed building is an iconic testament to Victorian engineering. At 50 feet high, 39 feet in diameter, it comes with a footprint of around 1,200 square feet.
Just wait for your eyes to adjust into the light.
Oh, wow.
This
God,
is
the acoustics are amazing.
Yeah.
Listen to that.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Look at
And
that.
believe it or not, this has taken us 9 months to get it to this state.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been involved in lots of tower designs before, and if you're looking at diameters of 4 or 5 metres, 6 metres, it's very tight.
It's really restrictive.
Yeah.
There's more staircase than usable floor plate, to be honest, but this is absolutely incredible. It's massive.
Yeah, the height is the real key. But unfortunately, because it's listed, we're restricted by the openings, so we're going to have like 4.5 metres floor to floors, whereas domestic's more like 2.3, 2.4 metres.
That windowsill's not your standard height,
No.
is it?
No.
There's something that's just so brutal about this building. Do you know what I mean? It's quite a kind of sublime space.
Yeah.
It's really
tough,
gritty.
strong,
It's really gritty for me.
Yeah.
It's gritty. That's what I love about it.
To be able to look all the way to the top of the building like this,
Yeah.
see those amazing steels above, and actually get a great sense of the width of the space.
Yeah.
It's
At
absolutely...
this moment in time, just being an empty volume, it's really exciting. It's great. A blank canvas.
Andy's innovative design is to turn the tower into a home split into 4 levels. The entrance level is for storage, as they won't have an attic. The raised ground floor level will have 2 bedrooms with ensuite bathrooms, plus a laundry room. The first floor will be the living room with an open-plan kitchen dining area. The second floor will have a further 2 bedrooms, plus a master bedroom with an ensuite. A spiral staircase will lead up to a new rooftop glass extension with its own roof terrace. With the new garage alongside the tower, the overall design will be an impressive 6,000 square feet, set in an acre of land. Because Andy and Anna have thrown everything into this project, they have nowhere to live, so they've moved in with Andy's parents.
I would have not taken anything on if we hadn't got the luxury of something like this. I wouldn't have bought a static caravan and put it on site, because we kind of romantically said, oh, we could live in a caravan, but it would be absolute hell. I've got no doubt about it, and just wouldn't entertain it. So, you know, we're about 5-6 miles away, it's about 15 minutes, absolutely ideal. You know, at the end of a day, when you're absolutely knackered, you can come home, it's warm, you can have some of mum's cooking if that's what you really want, and you can get a shower and go to bed, so it's ideal.
The tower already had planning permission for conversion when they bought it, but being an architect, Andy has improved the design. But cylindrical buildings have some unique design opportunities, and I feel I can offer a different view in some areas he might have overlooked. The level that worries me, to be honest, mate, is just the first floor level.
Yep.
It really is your kind of prime space. You know, when you think you're going to have people around, yes, they'll want to go to the observation deck, but they want to be, you know, in your living room and your dining room and your kitchen, coming over for a drink. And I'm just thinking on key areas like your living, dining room, kitchen. If the wall stopped short and there was a piece of glass there forming the junction between that new bit of stud partitioning and the old structure, means you're going to be looking through it and beyond it and having a greater sense of space.
Yeah, no, it's a good idea that kind of the new and the old kind of, you get the sense of the circle, and it passes past your viewpoint, so it takes you around the building. I like that idea.
I just think this is a building where the detail is going to make all the difference.
You know, it's good to get a second opinion here, because the last thing we want to do is miss the opportunity.
Yeah,
You know, it's a fantastic opportunity, and we want to keep the integrity and make the most of everything we've got.
Apart from all that, it's fine.
Yeah, good. So I'll give myself maybe a B+.
No. You know, I'd even go as far as saying an A-.
Thank you very much. Hopefully I don't come over too protective about it, and genuinely with the comments that George has made, I think they're all positive.
Yeah. You did really well today, because you normally don't deal well with criticism.
Yeah, Chris, for everything I've just said there, I'm quite difficult with criticism, but, you know, when they're good comments, they're fair, you've got to take them on board.
This is without a doubt one of the most fascinating industrial buildings I've ever come across. And I'm fascinated by Andy as well, to be honest. He's kind of implied that he's not that close to this build, that he's not going to get drawn into that issue of the architect being obsessed with his own home. But I don't believe him for a single second. This guy has given everything for the last 9 months just to get the building in this state, and he's just at the very beginning, both him and Anna, of a very long and a very tough journey. In 2009, Andy Critchlow and Anna Ferguson bought this derelict 19th century water tower in Congleton, Cheshire at auction for £100,000. They want to convert it into their dream home.
I am absolutely buzzing about this building. It's just incredible. I don't think I've seen an industrial building of this scale and size in such good quality. It's just phenomenal. I mean, the diameter of the tower itself is so unique. It's so rare to get your hands on a building of this style and of this build. And this central, huge central column that you've got, soaring up to the top, supporting all of those steels that would have supported the old water tank. It's just an incredible structural feat. For this to have any opportunity of being turned into a home is just, it's just an architect's dream.
After 9 months' hard slog of hacking and cutting away the building of unwanted scrap iron, they have one more piece to go before they can start the construction.
So this building's 130 years old, and there's been 9 months of super hard work done by Andy and all the guys to get all the cast iron out. And this is the very last bit. That was easier than I thought.
Oh, I've been...
Big day.
Yeah, the last piece gone.
With the tower encased in scaffolding, today is the start of a major operation to remove the roof. But with winter closing in, there's not a moment to lose.
This is a big kind of momentous occasion and piece in the whole build. The roof is literally, it's a Chinaman's hat, is how I've always referred to it. What they're going to do is they're going to cut some holes in the centre today, strap that up to the crane and then lift it off in one so it looked like a flying saucer's appeared in Congleton.
The roof has to come off because Andy has to cut out 6 huge iron beams that supported the old water tank. They're so big and dangerous, they've got to come out through the roof. Andy and his dad Cliff watch nervously.
I'm looking forward to it come off in one piece perfectly and then go back on and then come off and go back on for the next 2 weeks.
They've taken the tension on the chains at the moment, so it's just a case of easiness, gentle as they can to clear the bolts.
It's bigger than you think, isn't it? Another tick in the box. The next task is each of these long beams will come out in 2 sections. They'll then be lifted out of the roof and straight into a skip, ready to go for scrap. It does look like a bit of an alien object in the landscape now. It's only going to be landed there for a few weeks. It will be going back on and off every day to protect it from the elements for the next couple of weeks. We're all really happy with how today's gone, but we can't forget that we just removed the roof off a building at the start of winter, and there's lots of work ahead.
Andy and Anna's tower is a really unusual project and they know very little about its history, so I'm determined to help them as much as possible and to find out why it was built in the first place. By the early 1800s, Congleton's population had reached nearly 4,000, and everyone in the town was very much used to having drinking water from the established wells and from the river, but very little thought had been given to the disposal of human waste and sewage. But Congleton's problems were small beer compared to the rest of the country. As the Industrial Revolution grew, a vast number of workers were lured into already overcrowded cities. More and more people were being crammed into tenement buildings and slums. As their numbers increased, so did the sewage problem, and with that problem came a frightening amount of sickness and disease. But people just accepted it. In the winter you got colds, and in the summer you got something called English cholera. But because very few people died of it, no one really cared.
However, in October 1831, the Sunderland docks were about to be enveloped by one of the most terrifying pandemics from overseas. Asiatic cholera that swept in from the east. I'm meeting local historian Stuart Miller.
So Stuart, why have I had to come to my hometown of Sunderland to find out about cholera?
Well, because Sunderland was the first place in England to have an attack of this new devastating disease, which had spread all the way from northern India, across Asia, through Russia, and then eventually reached the Baltic. And in the Baltic were vessels waiting to come back to Sunderland. Sunderland was a cholera outbreak waiting to happen. In the 1830s, it was packed, overflowing, filthy, devastated by the effects of crowding.
This densely overcrowded town was the perfect breeding ground for the new strain of cholera brought into the docks by sailors.
So Stuart, what would the sailors have seen when they arrived in the port of Sunderland back then?
Well, their first vision, of course, would have been a crowded river, because the berthing plans suggest that the ships were berthing maybe sometimes 7 or 8 abreast.
How would it be transferred from one person to the next? I mean, we know with the plague it was rats, but how did it happen with this form of cholera?
Well, to put it bluntly, I suppose it's what you would call shitty hands. That's the problem. When you think about people living in packed accommodation here, with very poor sanitary facilities, it was almost impossible to keep yourself clean under normal conditions. And when you've got someone who has cholera already living in close proximity to you, then it's going to be almost impossible to keep yourself apart from this.
And what was it like for someone who actually caught this vicious, deadly cholera?
Your body would darken. Eventually, I think that you would die of, I suppose, what you would call a seizure or a stroke. Eventually, the body would just collapse. There's a lovely picture of a girl called Isabella Hazard, who's known as the Blue Girl, and she was one of the very early victims of cholera. And she's called the Blue Girl because there's a drawing of her in the Lancet Medical Journal, and her face is very darkened because that was one of the effects of the cholera, the Blue Girl.
Asiatic cholera spread like wildfire, claiming 130,000 lives in Britain by the end of the 19th century. This forced the government to sit up and rethink their approach to sanitation in the nation's filthy cities. Back in Congleton, to temporarily protect the building from bad weather, bizarrely the old roof needs to be lifted on and off daily. While Andy's at his day job, Dad Cliff is overseeing the project. Andy returns at night to carry on the work. It's a major stress, but Dad thinks he can handle it.
He's always been the same, even as a schoolboy. It's never been any different. He's one of those men that I think actually if he's got 10 minutes to spare, he'll be bored. He needs to be occupied all the time. And, well, he's got one now that occupies him.
But today, Andy is behind schedule. It's getting late and he's got to prepare the walls of the tower for the new steel beams being fitted in the morning. It's a long and laborious process, and tempers are beginning to fray between father and son.
There's a shitload of walk past on every floor. I don't care. Oh, for sake. Ow, for sake, they proper bastard blocks.
Finally, Andy and his dad have finished, and these restoration warriors can go home in peace. Although it's been a long and frustrating day, another critical deadline has been met. But soon, there's another setback. It appears that kids have broken into the site and vandalised the crane.
They wrapped all the cable around the spool for him to get the fitter out to check it out. At the moment, his computer inside his cab is registering 50 odd metres out.
This vandalism is going to cost Andy time and money he can ill afford. To hire the crane costs £450 a day. Add to that the estimated cost of £1,000 for repairs. Annoyingly, this was to be the last day the crane was needed on site. Without it, the roof can't go back on. In one of the worst snowfalls for years, the interior of Andy's tower is now left unprotected. As the crane is taken away to be repaired, all that can be done is for Andy and his 62-year-old father to haul ropes and canvas to the top of the tower to try and erect a temporary cover.
Come on, ropes!
Just a few days before Christmas, Andy and Anna's future home is snowed in.
It is mindless that people don't appreciate, you know, a stone throw through a window, just what havoc it can cause.
In December 2009, Andy Critchlow and Anna Ferguson bought this derelict 19th century water tower in Congleton, Cheshire for £100,000 at auction. With the remaining £200,000 from the sale of their previous house, they hope to turn this Victorian edifice into their dream home. Despite the severe weather and vandalism on site, the critical job of removing the old iron girders and replacing them with new steel ones is on track.
It's an unbelievably exciting day. This is where all the steels are turning up, that we're dropping in through this massive crane right through the top of the old roof. So all that steelwork will support the new timber floors that will be installed. But it's really a case of adapting the building to make that steelwork fit.
Okay, just take the weight off, Brian.
When you think of most restoration projects, it's kind of tinkering, you know, brushing away the flecks of paint and being very gentle with the old building because you don't want to damage it or cause any disruption. But not this one. This building is so tough and so hard. What I love about it, it's like a celebration of this area's hardcore, brutal industrialism.
When I first met Andy and Anna, I suggested a change to their kitchen design, which included a glass panel that could be used on all floors.
If the wall stopped short and there was a piece of glass there forming the junction between that new bit of stud partitioning and the old structure, it means you're going to be looking through it and beyond it and having a greater sense of space.
I'm interested to see if he took my ideas on board.
Immediately, I went back to the plans and the drawings and started to incorporate them. And in fact, we're standing in perfect position for the glass slot idea.
Yeah, so the vertical glass, so that the new wall, when it comes to the curved wall, there's a divide.
You can see through and you can see the space.
Yeah.
And I think the head of this stair here would be one of those partition walls. I think it'd be perfect here. Yeah. So yeah, I think we'll go ahead with that. And certainly it's built into the schedule of works now. If we can't afford it in the end, it gets boarded over.
Glass goes in.
Absolutely.
If you can't afford it, it doesn't.
That's
a good way of doing it. Yeah. That's perfect. You've made provision for it.
Made provision for all the suggestions, yes.
With the tower now beginning to take shape and look like a home, I've decided to discover more about its history. Now, despite the outbreak of cholera and the death of over 130,000 people, very little was actually done to clean up Britain. Sanitary conditions in places like Congleton still remained largely medieval. Now, in 1839 in the UK, for every one person that died of either old age or violence, 8 people died of disease. But there were a few Victorian reformers who at last managed to make the connection between diseases like cholera and water. Edwin Chadwick managed to persuade Parliament that better hygiene would not only prevent disease, but also lead to a healthier workforce. Influenced by this argument, in 1848, an Act was passed by Parliament. I'm going deep into the archives of the Palace of Westminster to discover more.
What's incredible about this room is you've got every single act ever created from 1497, all beautifully handwritten, like this one, on sheepskin.
As soon as you open the act, the first words that you see, in Norman French at the very top, is Le Reine de Feu, which basically translates as
the Queen wishes it. So it's an act passed for the provision of improving the sanitary of towers and the populous places in England and Wales. And it's expected that the supply of water to all towers and places improve the quality of sewage, drainage, re-cleansing and paving. I'm in this room with this piece of history, the first Public Health Act that defines the improved sanitary conditions of England and Wales.
In the early 1850s, there was another cholera outbreak. In 1858, with the excrement of nearly 2.5 million Londoners being emptied from cesspits directly into the Thames, it was getting clogged up, and the stench was unbearable. Known as the Great Stink, Parliament's windows were covered in drapes soaked in chloride and lime to keep the fumes out. The government even considered leaving the capital. Things had to change, and it took a fantastic feat of Victorian engineering to come up with the solution that still exists today: the London sewers.
With 10,000 people dying from the Great Stink of London and from the cholera epidemic, something desperately had to be done. London's first chief engineer, Joseph Balgzett, came up with a fantastic underground sewage system for the city. It stretches for over 1,000 miles and had a radical impact on all the inhabitants of London. What was fantastic is that London no longer was a public sewer.
This would have incredible ramifications that would be felt in every single town and city across the UK, including Congleton. In 1875, a new Public Health Act was drawn up, and this time it had teeth.
So we go from all of these beautifully handwritten acts to all of these, which were created from 1850, where they were all printed. And in here, we've got an incredibly important document: privies and water closets. I mean, you cannot get a more important thing when it comes to public sanitation than the everyday household loo. And it says here, it shall not be lawful newly to erect any house or to build any house pulled down or below the ground floor without a sufficient water closet or earth closet, or privy and an ash pit, furnished with proper doors and coverings, and rightly so, I think. Any person who causes any house to be erected or rebuilt in contravention of this enactment shall be liable to a penalty not exceeding £20.
If you like, this forced local authorities to up their game. They had to have health inspectors, medical inspectors, and they were pushed and pushed to provide the very best of sanitation, hygiene, sewage systems, and water. There's no doubt about it, this document is very much the Magna Carta of sanitary legislation. Only 6 years after this act was put in place, the Congleton Water Tower was built. If it wasn't for the act, the building would never have existed.
Designed by engineer William Blackshaw at a cost of £13,000, construction started on the tower in 1881. And 130 years later, the tower is being brought back to life again.
So the last time I was here, it was about 3 foot of snow and pretty miserable conditions on site for everybody. But today, beautiful blue sky, fantastic spring day, and we've got the boys' toys out. The crane's back. So how's it all looking?
We're pretty much cleaned out, ready for the fit-out to start as soon as we're wind and watertight. Anna's a bit nervous of it every time she comes up and down.
Why?
I've got a slight fear of open staircases.
Fears are there to be conquered.
My fear, apparently.
Yeah, fears are there to be conquered.
This space is absolutely brilliant.
This is the final look down.
Is one hell of a drop. That is unbelievable. You can't get more dramatic than that. It was worth sacrificing the floor area for, wasn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Really looking forward to this. Is it as good as I imagined?
It's a bit misty today because of the sun.
Oh,
come on, that's bloody brilliant. Bloody hell. Here it is. First bit of glass. Look at that.
find it an absolute pleasure and a privilege to see such a historic piece of architecture being beautifully transformed into something fresh, new, ecological, innovative. Yeah, you can't get more environmental than recycling an old building.
In the restoration of this tower, Andy's energy and single-mindedness has been the driving factor. It can appear at times that this passion excludes everyone else, even Anna.
I'm trying to get involved as much as possible.
Is it coming together the way you imagined it would be?
I don't really know what I imagined, because it was really Andy's vision.
You're looking forward to living in it?
I can't quite picture that yet. It doesn't really feel like a home yet.
I always know from him it's about the kind of bigger vision, you know, the drama of the staircase and the practical, functional side of getting this building together. Because in some respects, he's not just architect, but he's project manager, isn't he?
Yeah, he's everything, yeah.
So...
Oh, he's involved in every little detail.
Everything?
Everything. All consuming, everything, every single tiny detail.
Paint colours,
yeah.
The lot.
Yeah.
He seems really tough and he seems really driven, but he also seems really stubborn.
Not hard to please, he wants things done his way, that's what he keeps telling me. So.
But it seems to me like he's so controlled and driven that anything less than perfect would be a sign of weakness.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Now that the engineering side of converting this industrial building is complete, I think it's time for Anna to get involved in the interior design and fit out.
That's the girly bit, yeah, that's where I come in.
Oh, is it? Are you doing that? That's good.
Oh, you're going to let me?
Yeah, but give me a rest. Get on with it.
Right. We can stop being so control freak.
Yeah, whatever.
Oh, I think it's going to be a nice family home, hopefully. It's definitely big enough. Yeah. Probably somewhere we can settle down.
So far, this building project's going incredibly well, and that's down to one person, Andy. He's so well organised and driven, it's exactly what this restoration project needs. But as it gets to the end of the project and the detail of kitchens, bathrooms, fixtures and fittings, I think Andy might struggle. To make this project a success, I think he needs to bring Anna into the fold.
In December 2009, Andy Critchlow and Anna Ferguson bought this derelict 19th century water tower in Congleton, Cheshire for £100,000. Despite the terrible weather and damage caused by vandals, the major heavy work is completed. It's time for the interior fit-out.
We're on with partitions. This is the first floor and this is pretty much done now, and then the guys are working up the different levels.
But Andy is a man who is driven to the exclusion of almost everyone around him, and that sometimes includes Anna.
It just seems a little bit crazy going from like a 4-bed detached house to a water tower.
To give Anna some inspiration, I'm taking her to a completed tower restoration.
Here,
oh wow,
super giant size water tower. I think it's quite good to see somewhere like this where you've got so many rooms split on so many different levels,
right.
How they're organised and all the functional, practical things that you've got to think about to make it work.
Yeah, that Andy won't think about.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Come on in. What's quite interesting, from a very domestic point of view, is they've got this full-on vacuum air conditioning system, but if you want to vacuum the entire property, you can just plug in at any point in the house, so you don't have to lump a big hoover everywhere to hoover every floor. You just plug in a tube and it automatically kicks in, hoover all up, and then the dust comes all the way down to the ground floor.
Well, that's pretty cool. That's good. Yeah. I was already thinking about where I'm going to keep the hoover and I'm lugging it up and downstairs.
So on this level, kitchen.
Ooh.
The other thing is intercom system.
Oh, right.
Because obviously if they're on top floor and someone's down here, pick that up, push the button, have a chat with someone on the floor. Have you got that?
Don't think we're going for that. I think we're just going for the old-fashioned shouting up and down.
Andy's quite good at that.
Yeah, he's very good at shouting.
What they've done quite cleverly in this place, because the staircase is off to one side, the remaining spaces on each side is all storage. This is the absolute right time now, if Andy hasn't done it already, is to think about integrated storage. You're looking at me as if to say he hasn't really done that. See what architects do, right? All architects, and I'm as bad as the next one, they get super excited about, look at the staircase, and look at the light, and look at the space, and look how beautiful it is. And I'm slightly worried that Andy will get so absorbed in that side of the building project management, he's going to think about the practical, simple, but efficient things that you need to do right for it to work. Things like laundry. You don't want to be up and down the stairs all the time with laundry baskets from bedrooms down to utility spaces. So you could even think about putting in a laundry chute, which I bet he's forgotten about.
Oh, right.
Yep. You can literally just lift up a hatch on each level or on bedroom level. You could just chuck it all down.
I could just chuck it down the stairs.
Yeah. When you're upstairs and he shouts at you from the ground floor, you can just chuck dirty laundry at him. He's being too much of an architect. He's probably forgotten about all these very sensible things that you should take into account in a family home. You know, the architecture of making the spaces look beautiful, I think he's nailed that.
Yeah.
It's about the practical side.
How we actually use the room, so those kind of things are definitely important. Like taking shopping up and down, sorting out the laundry, things like that, hoovering, the cleaning, all those things that I'll be doing.
If Andy's promised that you're going to be in that house for the next 10 years...
He has.
Well,
That's what he promised to me.
Yeah, well, things are going to change, aren't they?
Definitely a family home. It's big enough. It's got enough rooms for kids. Yeah, it's, in my mind, it's something I'm thinking about. Hopefully Andy's on the same wavelength. I think Andy's probably thinking it more of a bachelor pad.
You can't think of it like a bachelor pad. It's got to be a proper family home.
No, we have to think about the future now, don't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what Andy and Anna's tower is now close to becoming. Ironically, it was Congleton's population increase and demand for homes in the mid-19th century that created the need for our tower in the first place.
My journey into the story of this tower has taken me from the Sunderland cholera epidemic to the Great Stink of London and the Parliamentary Archives. Without these extraordinary Victorian public health acts, which would help to protect Congleton's population of nearly 11,000, our tower would never have been built in 1881. The tower worked on the most simple principle you could ever possibly imagine. It would collect nearly 50,000 gallons of water from down in the town, from the existing wells and streams and rivers, and that would be pumped all the way uphill to the higher ground, up to its 50,000 gallon tank. And then that water would come all the way back down again under great pressure to supply the town and the population, all the houses. This water tower was in effect one big giant toilet system. The problem was, this building only really had a lifespan of around 50 years. A new reservoir was built, a new tower was built, and unfortunately, our beautiful Victorian tower became redundant.
What I've always liked about this restoration project is its daunting scale and ambition. It's taken someone with determination like Andy to face this enormous challenge of converting it into a home. Sadly, many of our great old industrial buildings are left abandoned and unloved because of their sheer size, or they are simply unsuitable for residential conversion. But after only a few years of hard graft and dedication, Andy and Anna have finally finished this restoration, and I'm dying to see it.
Morning.
Nice to see you.
How are you? You all right?
How are you?
Are you all done and finished?
Just about.
Yeah,
all done.
Welcome back.
All done, mate. Yeah, really good. This is unbelievable. That is a great space. What a beautiful space. It just works really well, doesn't it? The modern white floors being slotted in against the curved old brickwork, all cleaned up.
Old, crashed, new.
I love it. Should we go up and have a look?
Yeah, of course. Go on, Anna, lead the way.
It's jaw-dropping to think that when I first came here a year ago, this was just an empty shell. Today, as we go up the stairs, I'm struck by the fact that when you convert a round, tall building, it's always an architectural struggle not to lose too much of the space with the new staircase. So I'm really intrigued to see how Andy has made use of the space on the first floor for the spare bedrooms.
The litmus test of whether a building's finished is whether the spare room's done, I think, for me.
Spare room number 1. Number 2 looks just the same on the other side.
Does it? Done?
Absolutely.
It looks beautiful. Really, really beautiful. Nice and simple.
Yeah, that's
not over the top at all.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
beautifully done. I think the shape of the rooms is just spot on because you've got all of this perfectly planned bedroom, and then tucked in here, which is your kind of big service core, you've got all the bathrooms and services.
I'm still surprised there's no lift.
I see what you mean about the stairs now. Just keep you fitter and fitter.
As we climb to the second floor, I love how the exposed brickwork meets the clean lines of the steel staircase and the new white walls.
Into the living room.
Amazing. This is great.
This is a nice space.
Oh, it's a fantastic room, isn't it?
Yeah.
Literally goes on and on and on and on and on around the corner.
Follow the curve and it's all the way around.
It actually works really well, doesn't it? Because you've got a little work area over there, desk, computer right next to the window, seating area here, dining round there. Just in this area alone, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 windows, giving glimpses in all of those 6 different directions. This is lovely. Really, really nice. It just flows beautifully. With, you know, you come in and you've got entrance area, seating area, dining table, and keep going round the curve, and you've got this.
I feel this kitchen really works, and I love the way that Anna has put all the work surfaces along the curved wall as it embraces the space and celebrates the windows of the building.
I mean, that's not a bad place to wash dishes, is it, really?
It's fantastic.
You know, standing there washing a dish, looking out to that view.
Can't complain at that.
Well, if you're going to wash dishes, then you might as well do it in a beautiful place in the house.
Surprisingly, as we climb to the 3rd floor, I notice Anna didn't go for some of the practical things I thought they'd need, which I showed her at the completed tower we visited. So there's no intercom, fancy vacuuming system, or even a dumbwaiter.
Come on in.
Master bedroom.
Yes.
It's great.
It's our space.
Same shape as the other rooms downstairs.
Absolutely.
All logical, all
Absolutely,
very simple, all
yeah.
makes sense.
Bathrooms in the same place, drainage works fine, you know it.
But that repetition kind of just makes sense. It's logical. It keeps the cost down.
With the staircase taken out a 1/3 of the floor plan, Andy's been left with similar spaces on each floor. And I love the way he's been forced to work with the cylindrical fabric of the building. What was once just a conical roof is now a fantastic space. That extraordinary panoramic vista can be enjoyed for the first time.
The bit that I've been waiting for.
Oh, well, I hope it's not a disappointment.
I've been waiting for that. I even don't even want to look yet to just reveal it all. I'm that excited by it. That is unbelievable.
Looks good, doesn't it? It does look good.
As an architect, for me, this is what true restoration is about. Adding 21st century materials which respect and celebrate the old.
That is just magical. You can see for miles. I mean, that is to just die for. And the glass floor.
Yeah, your glass floor. Go on.
You did it!
Jump up and down.
It's amazing! See, my kids would just be lying on that all the time going, look. I'm glad you did it. It stops this level from being like a kind of self-contained unit on the top.
Completely isolated.
It's got that visual link downstairs,
absolutely.
which makes the space even more special, really. Unusual choice of flooring, I have to say. I'm surprised by that.
Are you?
Yeah.
Not my choice.
What, the boss?
Yeah.
It's my choice.
Anna chose this. This is Anna's beach, as you've referred to it a couple of times.
Well, I'm from Devon.
Can we step outside? What's the best door to get out of?
Entirely up to you. Let's go for this one.
It's amazing. Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very fantastic.
It's just
Views nothing to do with us, but it's fantastic.
Amazing. It's brilliant. When this building was built, with its industrial use, purely functional really, just how do we provide water for all the people in this area? Healthy drinking water for people in this area. And now it's a house.
I was always struck by the beauty of this Victorian structure, the extraordinary interior space and the brutality of the building. As custodians of the tower, I want Andy and Anna to remember that industrial heritage and one day pass it on to future generations.
It's a little present for you, the history of the building. Done a huge amount of research about the background to this and why it was built and who built it. And it's all here for you. A little memento for you to have down next to the front door.
Awesome.
William Blackshaw, the surveyor. And then all about cholera, the disease that really changed everything. And then the crisis in the UK at Sunderland. The lid coming off, big day that.
That's an awesome shot.
Yeah, it's a great
I've
shot.
not seen that before.
Congratulations.
That's fantastic. Cheers, George.
Absolutely fantastic.
Really appreciate
You've
it.
done
Thank
an
you.
amazing job.
He's done it.
There you go. Happy days. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Congratulations. It seems kind of appropriate to be drinking something liquid at the top of a water tower, doesn't it? I'm absolutely staggered by Andy's determination on this project. He's been ruthless, absolutely focused, and he knew exactly what he wanted. And with the help of Anna and all the family, they've achieved the most beautiful building. What I'm more amazed about is the reason why this was built was to allow this town to thrive. And now it's the most beautiful home.